Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who doesn't know what he's going to say about Rosalia's album Moto Mami. What can I say? My ignorance is profound. It says it right here on my mug, my official merch mug. Ignorance is profound. There's so much I don't know. I don't know Spanish. I mean, I know it a little bit. Intermediate level, but not like this. She's a flamenco singer? I don't know anything about flamenco. And don't even get me started on what I don't know about reggaeton. Or any of the international variations on reggaeton that might be on this album. My ignorance is profound. But also, my ignorance is profound. Meaning, I'm going to take you on this process as I move out of my ignorance towards understanding. Because it's scary not to know stuff. And you might actually be tempted to avoid this album altogether because you don't know Spanish or flamenco or reggaeton. I was. I didn't want to review this. But I got like a lot of requests, and then I put up a vote, and like 1,000 people voted for it. And frankly, you probably know better than I do what might be good for me to review if you've watched enough of my videos. So I'm going to take you on a journey from my first listen to my most recent listen, and all the research that I did in between, and how I learned to not just kind of like this album, but love this album. Now, my first listen, in my state of complete ignorance, I loved it. I could tell it was great. It was thematically interesting. I loved the mixture of avant-garde sounds and pop and what I assumed was flamenco and what I assumed was reggaeton. And her voice, at the same time it was bombastic, at the same time it was intimate. Language, everything. It was gorgeous. My initial take after my first listen resulted in something kind of cheesy. And I'm probably going to use this for my thumbnail because it's a catchy idea. Billie meets Arca. It's kind of lazy. Is it? Is that lazy? I mean, am I just saying Billie because they did one song together last year and I reviewed it? Am I just saying Arca 'cause Spanish? No. And to defend myself, there's more parallels than that. I mean, like Billie, Rosalía has a strong voice and an intimate voice. At times quirky and goofy, at times sort of sexy and menacing, an immense talent as a songwriter and as a performer, an immense precocity, slight hip-hop tinge with a lot of songs about loss and fame. The comparison to Arca is even easier to make. Now, of course, Arca is not Spanish. She lives in Spain. But still, this hyper-pop production skills, mixing in traditional Spanish sounds while mixing in reggaeton, it kind of makes sense. So let's let that be the initial premise. That'll be our starting point, and we're going to get deeper. We're going to get more nuanced into this album. And we're going to see. Billie meets Arca, okay, but it's more interesting than that. Now, I'm scared. I'm scared of this album, and part of the reason why is because it's in Spanish. But if you know anything about this channel, one of the things I like to fight, as much as I possibly can, is English hegemony. The hegemony of the English language. The complete cultural, colonial domination of language by English. If you are born in an English-speaking country, you have a privilege which you need to acknowledge. You are born with a power, a linguistic power, that everyone else in the world is trying to catch up to. So when an album like this comes out, and when it's mainstream, and when it's on Saturday Night Live, and when it debuts at #1, and it's all in Spanish, it makes my heart warm. It's fighting this linguistic hegemony. I mean, in just 1 month, we had Stromae and Rosalía. Spanish and French. This is a really good start. This is a really good month for fighting English hegemony. Because you have to understand the experience you have listening to this album, not knowing all the words and what they mean, that's the experience 9/10 of the world feels when they hear a song that comes on in English. What is "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go"? That's the experience most people have. That accent was from nowhere. Please put in the comments. I think I was actually doing an Andy Kaufman accent. So that's the first thing. And the good thing with my research after the first listen, hey, lyricgenius.com, genius.com, English translations, they're great. I speak enough Spanish that even just reading them was good enough for me, but in case you need more, they're great. I did a little research on her. She is Spanish, from Spain, family kind of from all over, but she has a degree in music, which is interesting, which is important, which is why she's such a great producer and a writer. I also learned that she's a real flamenco performer. I read a lot of interesting debates about whether or not flamenco should be considered Spanish or Roma. I'm not going to abort that debate right now. But it is interesting that she produces this, what is considered to be traditional musical form that is produced in the country of Spain. And then we get to reggaeton. Oh, reggaeton. I am terrified of that word. I didn't know I was afraid of that word. I've been hearing that word bounce around the zeitgeist for the past 10 years. And I just plug my ears and pretend not to hear. Like when sometimes when I know I haven't fed my dogs yet, like I have to pretend like I don't see them. And they're like kind of like bouncing, like walking back and forth. Or like a waiter ignoring you when you need more water. I've been ignoring the word reggaeton. I know what reggae is, but I don't know what reggaeton is. I don't know what a Daddy Yankee is. I don't know if it's from Bolivia or Colombia or Puerto Rico or America or maybe even Jamaica. It has the word reggae in there. I don't know anything about reggaeton. I have just been plugging my ears and eyes and just going about hoping to live the rest of my life and never having to understand reggaeton. Which makes me not so smart. Mr. Professor Big Brain has been missing out on something quite interesting. So this album forced me to do some research into reggaeton. And I gotta tell you, I am so excited to share with you what I learned. The whole thing is based on one simple rhythm. That's the basis of the whole thing. Boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka. Now that's not like dancehall rhythm. Boom, boom, ka boom, boom, ka boom. It's a slight alteration. Boom, ka boom, ka boom. Did you know there's a name for that rhythm? Did you? I didn't. Dembow. D-E-M-B-O-W. Oh, come to the rabbit hole with me. Dembow. Dembow. It comes from a single song. Now there's a great article which you can find linked in the Wikipedia article about reggaeton by someone named Wayne Marshall who breaks down the passage and the travel of this song. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video as well. It's an amazingly well-written scholarly article. If you are at a college, you will get access to the entire article that explains that the whole thing comes from the song Dembow by Shabba Ranks. Shabba Ranks. Produced by Bobby Digital. Not the RZA, Bobby Digital. Different guy. That was the first song to use that rhythm, or at least the first popular song. Boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka. That one song from that one Jamaican has been the basis of the entire reggaeton movement. According to his research, 80% of reggaeton songs use a sample from that song. That one song from 1991. Now what's fascinating is that sound, music just travels. You can't stop it. Hip-hop is everywhere. Reggae is everywhere. Reggaeton went from like reggae in Jamaica and then like got picked up in Panama and then started to go like in Puerto Rico where it's now seen as by some people as the center of the reggaeton. It becomes a part of this, the way it's described is pan-Latin identity, which is complex because she's Spanish, which would make her Hispanic, meaning she speaks Spanish, but not Latin, meaning she's not from Latin America. These are very complicated issues. Complicated issues which I discussed with a couple of Spanish professors today. And even that issue is sort of like, well, but then again, Spanish is a Latin language, so am I not Latin? I'm not here to discuss that. Feel free to argue in the comments. So this kind of music is all based on this one song, which in a quite complicated way is also a very homophobic song. Anyways, there's this whole thing. The whole thing is about not bowing to capitalism and colonialism, and for some people in the Caribbean, there's a perception that not being homophobic is a sign of imperialism. It's not up for me to describe. Hopefully Foreign Man in a Foreign Land we'll discuss this at some point. But this boom, ka-boom, 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 ka passes to Panama, gets popularized, especially by someone named Daddy Yankee, who's a Puerto Rican, and then it explodes all over the world to the point where when I listen to French hip-hop, all I hear is boom, ka-boom, 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 ka. It's everywhere. And the more I study it, the more I like it, the more I find it interesting. Now, there's a whole other question. Now that I've talked about the fact this is a Jamaican music style that was popularized in Latin America, is this cultural appropriation? Is this album an example of cultural appropriation by Rosalía, who's a European? She's a European. She's a European. She may speak Spanish, but she's a European. A Caribbean art form performed by a European. At the same time, there's a lot of Japanese culture in this album as well. The motorcycles that she sings about, a lot of the food, their pornography. I want to say no to all that. To the whole question of cultural appropriation, I'm saying no. I'm saying we need to move past that. Because this art form, these art forms, hip-hop, reggae, flamenco, all music is transnational at this point. It moves, it's adapted, it's what are the artists doing with it. And that's why I think she's careful to call her music alternative reggaeton, meaning she's not taking her place saying that she's the queen of reggaeton, but that she is using parts of that style. Now, interestingly, I spoke with my Spanish colleague, who's about my age, so he's older than Rosalía, and he's from Galicia, which is not where she's from. And he was explaining to me what I thought was Japanese influence, the sort of like the idea of like motorcycles and some of the imagery. He is saying is actually a lot more like a Spanish phenomena called poligonero, which are like the people who live on the outskirts of a city, who are famous for having big parties and long nails and bright colored shirts and sort of bad taste and big parties. His argument, or his hypothesis, he wasn't positive on this, is that to a certain degree, what he really sees in her music and in her videos is a sort of glorification of poligonero culture, which is Spanish, although perhaps not her culture, I don't know. In a way, it reminds me of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, who made the Italian Americans who were practicing disco, they of course weren't the first, but the scene that's described with Tony Manero, sort of this kind of working class dance phenomena, party phenomena, was then mainstreamed. Maybe I should say Rosalía is John Travolta. Now that would be a thumbnail. My colleague also points out that she isn't really using a typical Spanish accent. He says it sounds a little bit more like the H's are as a J. It's maybe more of that kind of poligonero style accent mixed in with the influence of Catalan, which is a totally different language that is spoken within Spain, and she also speaks Catalan. There's all these cultures. Do you see how many cultures we're talking about here? Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Spain, Roma, Catalan, not to mention frequent references to things that apply to the Spanish diaspora otherwise, like the Hispanic population in New York or Colombia. It's a big album. The more I studied it, the more I see how big and how rich it is. And it's so cool because it really fits in so well with the Stromae album, which in a lot of ways is a very similar, massively multinational effort. I usually do one stamp per album, like one song that's like the example song. I can't do it with this album. I'm just going to give you the first track, Saoko. See, I can't do it because every song, like basically she has a couple different modes, sort of like up and down, up and down, up and down, hard and soft, hard and soft. And to really understand the album, you have to listen to it all together and go through this vibration. Boom, ka-boom, ka. I mean, even that is sort of like hard, soft, tough, boom. Saoko starts off with this frenetic jazz, and she just keeps on saying Saoko Papi, and Saoko is apparently a reference to a Daddy Yankee song. I don't know anything about Daddy Yankee. He's a reggaeton guy. I don't know. And then it gets kind of menacing. So we get the boom, ka-boom, ka, the reggaeton sound, but then there's this gritty bass. That actually reminds me more of Cypress Hill than it does of, I don't know, any Spanish music I've heard. Really cool stereo productions, a little bit heavier on the right. All I can pick up with these lyrics keeps talking about butterflies, mariposo, which is also sometimes slang for a gay person. I don't think that's intentional. Perhaps it is, because she also is referencing drag queens. She's talking about transformations, and she's sort of rapping, sort of not, and her voice is like super ragged and slightly affected and so charismatic with this first track. And then there's like halfway through, there's a breakdown, and it gets all jazzy. There's all these layers, and it's hyper, and it's aggravating, and it's jazzy, and it's reggaeton. And then all this song's about transformation and about changes. And at the very end, she makes reference to pampara. My Spanish colleague doesn't know what the hell that means. What does that mean, pampara? That's a Dominican Republic term for good. This is a song about Pan-Latin identity, but also Pan-Hispanic identity. Not everybody speaks English. The next song is called Candy. Very gentle keyboards. The voice is so central. It's so personal. It's like this song about not wanting to be forgotten. A beautiful, quiet section. And then the rhythms kind of start going, and eventually it's a little bit more, again, back in that reggaeton style. She directly mentions the song Candy by Plan B. And so I looked that up. And that's this awesome song. It's this awesome reggaeton song. And do you know how happy I was that I liked this song? I was afraid that all I would like about reggaeton is Rosalía. But she gave me homework. She said, hey, professor, listen to this song. And that song was awesome. It's just as good as whatever Rosalía was doing. She's really providing a means to move on to other reggaeton music. I did also realize at this point, while I was on the elliptical listening to this for the third or fourth time, that the elliptical is a great way. Reggaeton is great for the elliptical, because an elliptical actually has kind of a stuttered beat to it. Boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka boom, ka. It's not like running, right? Like running is just do, 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 do. So next time you're on elliptical, put on some reggaeton. Next song is La Fama. Oh my God. Have you heard this song? How do I get you to engage? Tell me if you've heard this song. That's not very engaging. On a scale of 1 to I just cannot believe how good this song is. How good did you? I mean, it's got almost a bossa nova beat to it. This weird sort of kazoo. Super catchy, and her voice is so beautiful. And you're just sitting there and you're saying, nothing could be more beautiful than this. And then there's this slight lift in the key. Just the sounds just pitch up a little bit in tone. And The Weeknd is there. Oh my God. I mean, The Weeknd. This year's been the year of me discovering The Weeknd. Oh. And he's singing in Spanish. And his Spanish is beautiful. It's just beautiful. I'd like to remind you again of why Canada is better than the United States. Not in every way, but at least in this way, they force intercultural competence on their inhabitants, on their habitants, by forcing them to learn French. That's why I think he sounds so good singing in Spanish, even if it's a different language. Don't forget, he's also sung a France Gall song written by Serge Gainsbourg before. But the bilingualism of Canada is part of the strength of this song. And he just sounds so good. They sound so good together. This might be as good as Hurricane. Not as a song, but as a Weeknd feature. The whole theme of the song appears to be about just fame being bad and just... fame is a bad lover and I'll never marry her just for a night. But then there's this one beautiful production moment where it's just the bass and the Weeknd's voice. And I'm sort of putting together a collection of my favorite moments of music of the year. I'm going to put this in there along with the whistles from Stromae, the guitar breakdown in the song Concord by Black Country New Road, and then this bass part with the Weeknd. It's so great. I thought I was excited about the last song, but my favorite song on the album is the next one, Bulerias. Now this song, her voice is way up front, and underneath are drums. Not drums, drums. Sort of drums. They're supposed to be imitating the sound of flamenco, which is the sound, and I'm not going to do it because it's going to shake the camera. I'll do it, even though it shakes the camera, of people pounding on the ground with their heels. Beautiful voice. You can hear the influence of Arab countries on this music as well. And her voice is just center stage, and she's picking you up by the scruff of your neck and just going. You want to know how well I can sing? You want to know what I can do with my voice? You think I'm just all nails and intercultural this and that and motorcycles? No. It's so beautiful. And the rhythm underneath this heel on the ground is actually a drum. It's actually like an electronic. It keeps changing. And her voice keeps changing. The rhythm doesn't change, but her voice changes. And the sound that is making the rhythm changes. Becomes more synthetic, less synthetic. Eventually a children's choir seems to join her. And then eventually there's like some men also singing along with her. And then what's she singing about? She's singing about her status as a cantatora, as a singer. She's defending herself as a singer in the face of fame, in the face of international superstardom. She is still a flamenco singer. I am just listening to her for the first time ever on this album. And I feel as though I'm like, that's right. You don't ever let people tell you what you are. I didn't know who the hell she was a week ago. All right? That's how effective this song is at communicating that sense. She makes a direct reference to Caracol, who's a famous flamenco singer. I did my research. And then to Lil' Kim, who's a famous rapper. I know that. I own a couple Lil' Kim albums. And it's able to really show the ambition that she has with this album of mixing these things together, mixing everything together, just constantly. Which we also see in the next song, Chicken Teriyaki. Ooh, 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 ooh. The beat's a lot more simple with this like over the top, ooh, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, and then reggaeton underneath. The seriousness of the last song, her great plea to be taken seriously as a singer, is now completely wiped aside as she's making this ridiculous song in which her words, according to an interview I read, is just about being kawaii, which means cute in Japanese. It's about like buying jewelry. And she rhymes Mike Dean with drag queen. The reference to Mike Dean is also pretty important because Kanye is all over this album as well. The influence of Kanye, perhaps it comes through Arca helping to produce Yeezus. Perhaps it comes from one of the producers on this album being Kanye's primary engineer and one of his main producers. But definitely, it's not a coincidence here. And a lot of these lyrics are for Dominicans in New York. And then just these kind of silly lyrics, nothing here for you, chicken teriyaki, my shawty wants maki, my shawty in a Kawasaki. This weird sort of Japanese, American, reggaeton, Spanish sounding all coming together. Speaking of Spanish things, Hentai is the next track. Everything is produced by a lot of different people. Everything is co-produced by Rosalía. I'm mentioning some other notable producers at times. Pharrell Williams here, which makes sense. He's sort of the king of international pop music that sounds vaguely Japanese at times. Very gentle piano and voice. This reminded me the most of Billie Eilish in the beginning. Like, I think if you put Happier Than Ever and then played the first 3 seconds of Happier Than Ever, first 3 seconds of this, you'd hear it. The chorus, the refrain's in English, so good. A very odd verse with this off-kilter piano. Very sexual lyrics. I'm in love with your pistol. I think, now this is just a theory, I might be going way out of here. I think when she says pistol, she's actually talking about a penis. I think so. But that's just a crazy theory. In the comments, you can tell me. Just don't even mention that in the comments. Whatever you do not mention the pistol in the comments. And it's just the ending of the song just gets really crazy with these instrumental sounds like stuttering and falling into place. This is very kind of Arca again to me. Those kinds of sounds, saying over and over again, ya te quiero hacer hentai, talking about hentai, which is Japanese pornography, Japanese animated pornography, which I read an interview where she said that that's like a very important thing to her and that she thinks it's more creative than actual pornography. Who can disagree with that? Also, the term chingate is used here, which is Mexican slang. She's using all this slang that Spaniards would understand, but it'd be weird, right? It would be like if in the middle of a Billie Eilish song, she was like, g'day, mate, or I put in the boot of my lorry, like these are terms which don't read as Spanish in Spain. Biscochito is the next song, which means which means cookie. Now this is like a fast reggaeton, boom, boom, get boom, boom, get, with all these odd synth hits, very frantic, unsettling, intentionally unsettling, a little bit detuned, just saying over and over again, I'm not your cookie, I'm not your cookie. Da 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 da, desde el día que nací, da 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 da. Her voice is pitched up and all weird and talking about, are you a pimp? Are you being pimped? And then she talks about the waves of Korea. The waves of Korea, which as far as I can tell is her describing her makeup style, which is apparently a Korean makeup style. I don't know. I don't wear makeup. I don't know what it is, but the song is just fun. And it's just back and forth, like kind of like down songs and up songs, and this real wave. According to Lyric Genius, this is also partly a recreation of Dangerous by Busta Rhymes, which if you listen to Busta Rhymes, Dangerous, and then you listen to this, it is. It's not appropriation. This is just growth and art. G3N15. Oh my God. So we just had that whole boom, 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 and now we're just so gentle. And she uses auto-tune sometimes. She even used it in that song where she was talking about being a real flamenco singer. But she uses it for emotion, the way Bon Iver uses it, the way Kanye uses Bon Iver for it. And the words are just so gorgeous. And you don't know what they mean yet, but they're so gorgeous. And there's like a church organ. It's a COVID song for her cousin, her 10-year-old cousin, who she hasn't seen for 2 years. And that's what she's singing about. And at the end, her grandmother speaks, I believe in Catalan. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, or if I'm right, in Catalan, saying how important family is and how much she misses her. Who would think that one of the great COVID songs came out of this album? Where like the cover is like a naked woman with a motorcycle helmet with like hair like an angel's wings with her hand over her crotch. Who would think that one of the best COVID songs comes from there? The next song, Moto Mami, again, Pharrell in this weird semi-Japanese futuristic style, very bass-heavy, woozy synths, and then jazz pianos in the background, but they're slightly detuned. You're never quite comfortable. All these weird mashup of Japanese food and Japanese things and Spanish, Pesami tatami, itlo tsunami, oke moto mami, fina un origami, kura alo sashimi, all these words here. It's basically an interstitial song. Diablo is the next song. Just beautiful. I mean, we think about the producers on here. We have Noah Goldstein. I guess Noah Goldstein, his first name is Noah, who's the guy who works with Kanye. El Guichno, who produces also a lot of FKA Twigs. And then James Blake. James Blake is on here. So Diablo has this like oddly pitched voice, some reggaeton sounds as well. It's just all very aggravating. But then James Blake comes in and his voice is just high and beautiful. And then it's matched with her voice. It's very similar to how she was able to get The Weeknd in here. And the whole thing is about becoming corrupted by fame. I don't know who you are anymore. About kind of falling to the devil, to the Diablo. Diablo was my first word in another language. My brother Amos taught me the word Diablo. He said, do you know the word for devil in Spanish? I said, no. He said, Diablo. I said, that's cool. And he said, you want to know another word? And I said, yes. And he said, pendejo. True story. And thus my love of language began. Delirio de grandeza. So I listened to the song and my first take, okay, these are my first notes up here, okay. I said, cool, Cuban style, because it reminded me of Cuban music, because I went through a Cuban music phase before Buena Vista Social Club came out a couple of years, and then everyone had their music phase. It makes sense. It's a cover of a Justo Betancourt song, and it's just her again flexing, picking you up by the scruff and going, I'm a good musician. Don't you think I'm just a pop star? Whoosh, okay? That's what she's doing to you. And then in the middle of it, she mixes in Soulja Boy in some like crunk song from 2009. It's like a 60s Cuban song, 2009 crunk rap song all together. This is a masterful album of unexpected synthesis. Cute is the next song, which starts off with like a Vietnamese TikTok kid counting to 20, a stuttered bass, absolutely crazy. I think this is supposed to sound like a drum line in Carnaval, because you hear whistling and like very tight snares. It reminds me a lot of Arca's production on Yeezus and Arca's production on Arca 3. The chorus is just mad, just wild, keep it cute. And then the post-chorus, it becomes gentle. So she's mixing together like the gentle and the crazy all at the same time. kind of silly lyrics, A for Alpha, B for Brave, C for Charlie. But then they get kind of meaningful when they say the best artist is God. Como un G, another song produced by James Blake, and we really hear James Blake here. Very breathy in the beginning, very kind of Billie Eilish breathy. Beautiful sound bed behind, just the soaring voice. And again, more sacred sounding synthesizers. A weird sort of mixture of English and Spanish, where you have no me enamoro de nadie jura como una G. Ni escribo canciones de amor, pero en esta me doblo por ti. Where she's singing like, I don't love anything anymore. I'm like a G. I'm not gonna write any more love songs except maybe for you. And this just repetition gets so weird with this expression, like a G. I had to explain to my Spanish colleague, that means gangster. He said, oh. This weird idiomatic English expression, and at the end of the song, after the bridge in the last verse, como un G is repeated over and over again to the point where it's sort of out of context. You don't quite understand what it is. And then the next song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, is another interstitial thing where she's playing along with language. That's a couple songs in a row all about the alphabet. This is like a Sesame Street, right? Because on Cute, it has the section where it says A for Alpha, B for Brave, C for Charlie. This song has like a G. And then the next song is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, where she just goes through the entire alphabet and gives words for each thing. F is for Aeon Flux. Totally underrated cartoon from the 90s. And then Z, I think, is most interesting. Z de Zarzamora, o de Zapatea, o de Zora. Tambien. For Blackberry, for shoes, like high heel, not high heel shoes, for the kind of shoes you wear in flamenco dancing, or for a hooker. So we have this sort of symbol of nature, this symbol of art, and then the symbol of sexuality, and maybe this sort of underclass, underrepresented people. All those things are together for Z. Blackberries, flamenco shoes, hookers. The whole album is right there in that one song. I hate to tell you, that's the whole album right there. This album could have been called Z. That would have been good. La Combi Versace, just a total brag song, all about being dressed super well. Very sad sounding synths in the back, very cut up and chopped voices, eventually some beautiful like claps in the back. And it's a whole conversation with Tokisha, who's a Dominican rapper. And I love this back and forth between them. I feel, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm being goofy, but I feel it's like a conversation across the Atlantic Ocean. Like I feel it. Like I can feel the Dominican Republic, that half of that island over there, Haiti on the other side, right down there, and over there in sort of northern Spain. I sort of feel them like going back and boom, ka-boom, 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 ka, and speaking across the waves. La ola. The album ends with the beautiful Sakura, more of this Japanese influence, which means cherry blossom. Starts off with an audience sound. Audience is everywhere. It gives you this feeling as though you're in a concert and you're watching her. Once again, she has you by the scruff and is showing you that she's a great singer. Just her voice with a slight echo about how a cherry blossom lasts a short amount of time, much like her fame. And it makes you realize this whole album is her trying to figure out who she is. What is her relationship to fame? What is her relationship to authentic art? What is her relationship to hip-hop and reggaeton and flamenco? And so she just takes everything and she just puts it all together, mixes it up, produces it beautifully, and gives it to you. So that's what I learned. What did you learn from this album? I learned I like reggaeton. I like some music that is sung entirely in Spanish. And I learned that I like flamenco, and that Arca is not the only good musician in Spain. Feel free to tell me more. All right, till next time, I'm going to eat some pasta salad. It's exciting. There's the camera.